I want to go back, take a trip to 2021, where Prince Charles was at the COP26 meeting and he talked about the speech. And it's the speech everybody knows for the fact of he made reference to who we believe to be the Antichrist who's going to step in. But I don't want to talk about that specific part. What I want to talk about comes after that. So before we go any further, take a listen to what he had to say at COP26.
Together, we are working to drive trillions of dollars in support of transition across 10 of the most emitting and polluting industries. They include energy, agriculture, transportation, health systems, and fashion. The reality of today's global supply chains means that industry transition will affect every country and every producer in the world. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the private sector is ready to play its part and to work with governments to find a way forward.
All right. So I wanted to play that specific part because he specifically talks about 10 industries. Now, I do understand that there's a lot of people that hold the belief, and I'm not saying they're wrong. This is my opinion, but I know there's people out there that they hold the belief and they talk about how the 10 kings that Daniel talks about, the 10 kings that he talks about, are going to be land sectors. They're going to be in control of 10 land sectors. Well, if you look at this speech, this is the same one that he talked about the Antichrist. He talks about 10, specifically 10 industries. And then he goes on to expand those industries basically can control the entire world. Now, I'm under the belief that the 10 kings will be 10 industry leaders, not 10 land sector leaders. And so that's where my belief comes in. That's where my stance is. I think the 10 kings will be 10 industry sectors. Now, he mentioned 5. And where I raised my eyebrow, where I was confused when I first heard that, was fashion. He mentioned fashion industry being one of them. And it raised my eyebrow because he talked about, okay, health, technology, transportation, agriculture, that all makes sense. If you got a king in charge of all of those, that makes sense. But fashion, why fashion? What makes it so special? Well, I think we've got our answer because when we look at what we just talked about for a couple of weeks with Balenciaga, or Balenciaga, however you want to pronounce it, I think it's starting to make sense because the fashion industry is their trafficking industry. It's their children trafficking industry. It's their pedophilia ring. So when he says fashion, I don't think he's talking about clothes. I think he's talking about their child trafficking, their pedophilia ring. And we're going to talk about it in depth. And yes, Balenciaga is definitely part of that. Balenciaga is a part of that. But it does not stop there. First on the list, there's a fashion elite brand fashion company called Caroline Bosmans out of Belgium. Of course, elite fashion company out of Belgium. Caroline Bosmans. They have ads and images of children in disturbing positions, such as on the toilet, in the arms of a drag queen, and in the arms of a naked, almost naked bodybuilder. In dead poses where they look like they're dead. Several of them with children covering one eye, which we know that is a symbol of the elite. And overall, the images of these kids in all these positions is a depressing, lifeless, soulless style. Usually when they do this stuff, it's hard to describe. I'm not showing one single picture about this stuff. So if you think there's pictures, I'm not even going there. But all of these pictures of these children are in this soulless, depressing. They look depressed. They look drugged. Just to be honest, these kids look drugged. Would not be surprised if these kids are indeed trafficked children in these pictures. And it's just, they look soulless. They look lifeless. While it's not as grotesque as what we've seen on Balenciaga, these kids look dead inside. And I really want you to understand, it doesn't look like these kids are acting or putting on a specific pose. They look like something was done to them to make them look dead, to look soulless, like they don't have a life. I really want you to understand that. I really want you to understand that. Now, that's Caroline Bosmans. That's, as bad as it is, it gets a lot worse. Like back to Balenciaga level worse. Now we've got fashion company, also elite fashion company, Benetton, who has now been called out for their photo shoots that also feature children. They've got photos with young children wearing minimal undergarments in provocative poses. I'm not going to really dive much deeper into what I'm talking about, but it shows these kids wearing very minimal undergarments, both male and female children, and they're in provocative poses. Things like pulling their shirts up or having jackets zipped so far down that it's obviously trying to show something, things like that. That's company Benetton. Even going back with the same company to 1991, they even had an ad with two children called Angel and Devil. Yes, this is back in 1991. Angel and Devil, it was the two children. One was a blonde girl shown smiling, happy as can be, rosy red cheeks, and she was supposedly the angel. Next to her was a black girl with hair. They did her hair so it looks like she had devil horns, and she was not smiling. She looked depressed, and she was devil. So that's even getting involved with that stuff. That is from 1991. The Benetton group goes further. It goes further than that. A man by the name of, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, Flavio Briatore. That's how I pronounce it. Flavio Briatore. He is an Italian businessman who was responsible for setting up several franchises for Benetton. Or I keep saying Benetton. Even so much so, he set these companies up while he was technically a wanted man in both the U.S. and the Virgin Islands. Briatore is found multiple times in Epstein's Little Black Book. Epstein's Little Black Book. That is the black book of the passengers who took flights and trips to Epstein's Island. I'm sure you guys know all about Epstein's Island. We've talked about it before and all of that stuff involved with it. Well, he was in Little Black Book multiple times. Quite a few times, actually. Some people might say that's a coincidence. Well, maybe not. Briatore, who, like I said, Italian businessman who set up several franchises for Benetton, he also managed a high-class international racing company for the Benetton group. So if you don't know, a lot of these high-class companies like this, they have like these special international races and everything. Well, he managed the racing company for the Benetton group. So Briatore is good friends with a fellow racing associate, Alejandro Agag, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, who is also found in Epstein's Little Black Book several times as well, pointing to the fact that these associates, they knew each other, they were good friends, they worked together, they were also associates and good friends with Epstein, and of course they took multiple trips to Epstein Island as well. So here's your connection of this guy who's connected to Epstein, also connected to the same group, the same fashion company that is putting out these children's ads where these kids are basically half naked in provocative positions and all this stuff. It's all connected. Do you see how all this stuff is connected? It's all together. The fashion industry and how these kids are, the predatory and pedophilia style that comes along with it. It's all connected. There's no coincidence with this. All these people know each other. All these people are working together, and we understand what's going on. Now, speaking of Epstein, diving into Epstein, we're now getting news that JP Morgan has recently been accused of and has been sued for aiding Epstein's sex trafficking of minors. JP Morgan Chase, the bank, has now been accused of aiding Epstein's sex trafficking of minors and was sued. Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise George sued the financial giant, saying that JP Morgan knowingly provided and assisted in ways for recruiters and victims to be paid. So, of course, when it comes to, payment for all of the travel and the accommodation, as well as the children and everything, you have to be able to pay these people. Well, how do you do that without getting caught? How do you do that without getting an investigation on you? Well, you have somebody on the dole. You have somebody, a part of your group, doing it with you. And JP Morgan apparently was caught doing so. JP Morgan would receive lump sum wealth via their new high-class clientele. So basically, the deal that they had going is if JP Morgan would do the money, do the transactions and the money between Epstein and the clientele, Epstein was basically bringing in all those clients to basically make JP Morgan money. So it was all a giant scheme between the two. They were working together. Well, that was 3 days ago. 3 days after that suit was filed, 3 days after the lawsuit was filed by Attorney General Denise George, she was then fired by Virgin Islands Governor Albert A. Bryan Jr., and the lawsuit was dropped. Just going to let that sit there for a moment. After the Attorney General decided to go after JP Morgan because of their affiliation and their business being done with Epstein, she was fired 3 days later, and the lawsuit was dropped. Yeah. Keep an eye on her name, because obviously she knows things that she's not supposed to know. Just keep an eye on her name and see if she recently dies for some reason. Just throwing it out there. And obviously that governor just revealed himself to being what they're a part of. We're going to go deeper with this. Just think when the rapture happens, all those little children will disappear. Yep. Get them out of here. Get them out of here. And it's one of those things where God doesn't play around. God doesn't play around when it comes to his children. And I firmly believe that there's going to be a special place in hell for these people who were involved with the kids. And and the Bible warns us. Luke 17:2. It would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around their neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. Luke 17:2. And I chose this specific picture because we know what Disney is a part of and what they've been doing. And so Mickey Mouse deserves to have a millstone tied around his neck as well. God doesn't take lightly when it comes to what they do to the kids, to the little ones. A lot of connections about how all of the trafficking, all of the kids trafficking, how the fashion industry, how all of it is all connected. And we're seeing it. We're seeing the Benetton group with Epstein and all that. We know Disney's a part of Epstein Island as well. All the cruise ships that took trips to Epstein Island and everything like that. We're seeing how it's all connected. Well, it gets worse. Then we've got famous fashion designer Tom Ford. It's an easy name to remember. Tom Ford. Tom Ford is known for being the creative director of Gucci in 1995 and Yves Saint Laurent in 1999, all the way up until 2004. Those are some names I'm sure y'all recognize. Gucci and Yves Saint Laurent. You can find pictures with him and Maxwell at a Gucci party in 2002. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, there's always pictures of these people together at parties. It doesn't mean they're associates. Well, there's also notes in Epstein's Palm Beach mansion from 2005 proving that Tom Ford was a guest there, that the Epstein hosted Tom Ford at his mansion. The message was from Maxwell. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Is it Ghislaine or Ghislaine? I don't know. Ghislaine? I don't know. Maxwell. I just call her Maxwell, just so you know who I'm talking about. There's a message from Maxwell to the pilot, their helicopter pilot, to pick up specifically Tom Ford alone. It specifically says alone in their helicopter. So, yes, there's definitely a connection there as well. The picture of Tom Ford and Maxwell at the Gucci party was found on a specific fashion website. Okay, so again, hang with me, guys. I'm going to try. I know I'm bad sometimes at explaining things. I'm going to really try and connect all these dots and how everybody's connected. So please hang with me. If you have questions, let me know. But the picture of Tom Ford and Maxwell at the Gucci party was found in a fashion website. The fashion website was called style.com, which was owned by a company called Condé Nast. Now, Condé Nast doesn't own that website anymore, but they did when this picture was released. This is relevant for this next part. Condé Nast owns quite a few other brands. Several of them I'm sure you recognize: Allure, Glamour, GQ, Vanity Fair. They also own, and I really want you to pay attention to these companies: Vogue, Teen Vogue, Vogue Business, and Vogue Global Network. So this Condé Nast company owns all of Vogue. And this is the same company that had the picture of Tom Ford and Maxwell. Okay, so hang with me here. Keep Vogue in mind. If you don't remember, Vogue did a photo shoot last year on Zelensky and his wife. I just remembered I was supposed to have those pictures that I could show you, but I don't. But you can search for them. Just do a Google search. You will find just Vogue shoot with Zelensky. During this supposed war where Ukraine was just decimated and didn't know what they were going to do, and Zelensky was panicking and all this stuff, they had time to stop in the middle of it. And Vogue went to Ukraine and did a photo shoot with Zelensky and his wife. So there's the Vogue connection between all of this. Stick with me. Okay, so we've got Vogue, we've got Zelensky, we got this stuff. Remember, we talked about it 2 weeks ago? I think it was 2 weeks ago. But we just talked about the connection with Zelensky, the creative director of Balenciaga Demna, United 24, and that fundraising that they were doing for displaced people, displaced children, and Balenciaga themselves. There's a giant connection. We talked about how the Zelensky, Demna, Balenciaga, United 24, we talked about how that is a part of the trafficking, the child trafficking. We know that that's what's going on with this. And so Vogue has now been a part of it, and Vogue is now connected to Epstein and what's going on there. Not to mention, you now throw in the JP Morgan connection along with Tom Ford, and they're all connected to Epstein, all connected to child trafficking, all connected to everything as far as that goes. You guys following along? Do you guys see how everything is all being connected here? How everybody knows everybody, everybody's a part of all this stuff. Well, we're going deeper.